Hey guys, welcome everyone. I have a very important guest with me. His name is Lavi Nigam. So Lavi is selected as one of the 40 under 40 data scientists by Analytics India magazine this year, and he comes with a rich background in data science analytics. So as per Lavi's LinkedIn profile, he builds AI/ML model, puts them in production, and teaches AI/ML. So very interesting introduction from Lavi's LinkedIn actually. So Lavi, would you like to just introduce to the audience?
Yeah, so like I wrote in my LinkedIn, I do three very simple, straightforward things, which is I sort of help my business operationalize a lot of AI ML stuff that they want to do. And this is very important because I've been in the industry from almost 8 years now. So at the start of my career, I've sort of dabbled with a lot of different kinds of models and all those things, but they never went to production, which is a altogether very different scenario. So my current role in Gartner focuses on that, which is we tend to operationalize models and predictions. So that's precisely what I do day in day out. Along with that, I teach, which is one of my passion. I think that's one of the good things if you really want to learn yourself is to teach somebody what these concepts are, and that has really helped me so far. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, so do you have any content? I mean, do you write blogs or create videos or any place where viewers can go and watch your teachings, videos, etc.?
Unfortunately, no. So I don't get time for the blog stuff. I would love, but I don't get enough time. I don't have any public videos, which is on um, any platform at this point. I am mostly teaching in companies like Edureka or upgrades and all those things. So all those sessions are essentially not available outside. Yeah, so there's nothing which is available outside. But yeah, if people would like to reach out to me for anything specific, I'm always there available on LinkedIn, so we can do that. But unfortunately, I don't have anything online.
No problem. That's great to know. So one great thing about this discussion, Lavi, is many people in my YouTube now, nearly 10K plus subscribers are there. Okay, and
Mhm.
many of those people are kind of freshers who are trying to make a move to data science. So when I say freshers, they can be a college grad pass out, or they can be a final year of engineering or MBA, or they can be working in Java, .NET, something. They want to move to data science. So
Mhm.
to start with, from your experience, Ravi, what would you recommend as path to data science to them?
Um, Quite an interesting question, and also the one where there cannot be a straightforward and a rightful answer. Like I said, having been into the teaching side of data science as well, and I've mentored so many people, I've had experience with folks who are freshers, who are like 15, 20 years experience. So I just want to sort of set it right that there's no right path. A lot of people dabble with it. A lot of people figure out very different paths. A lot of people have bits and bits of advices that you should do this and that. It works in some cases, it doesn't work in some cases. So the very first thing I would say is uh, know the reality of the whole industry. It's easier to know that because then you don't have unrealistic expectation to start off. Secondly, does that mean that you cannot go into data science? That's also not true. There are, like I said, there are a lot of people who have transitioned into data scientists from very different backgrounds. I have also known them personally. I'm sure you also know them, and there are thousands of folks like this on the internet. But and they all have very different journeys, so we can't really have like top five things that they have done. But what I can say is the most common thing that you will observe in all of those people, and the things that I have observed, is the fact that they were really passionate about the field, which is So passionate is not like, a very general saying that you have to be passionate, but passionate means that you're up for learning anything, because that's one of the biggest thing you have to do in data science, which is, unless you're not passionate about the field, it'll be very tough for you to grasp the depth of, the topics and everything, because there's so many things, right? There are so many topics, there are so many different evolution of tools that are happening every 6 months. There's something new which is coming up, and this is a very different field compared to any other field that people have been exposed to. See, most of the other field, whether it's software engineering or any other different verticals that people usually have after their careers, they're very set fields. There are a set of things that you need to learn. If you do that properly, you're in the field. But in data science, things are very different. So that's why I prefer that people should really have that passion, because you should be up for learning anything. You should be very free in terms of learning, because there's no day. It's very similar to becoming a doctor. Not that you'll be doing something as precious as what doctors do, but the premise is that just like doctors have to be up on their toes every day, so as data scientists, if you have that kind of an attitude, and if you're eager to learn, eager to do certifications, eager to connect with people who are doing things, eager to solve problems on Kaggle, even if it takes like 2 months of your time, and um, but if you're eager to do all of those things, I think you will eventually transition. You will figure out some or the other entry point or loophole somewhere in the industry and get into. So that's what I would say. I don't prefer, like I said, I don't prefer saying top three things, top five things, do this, do that, because people are very varied. Some people will, it'll work with somebody, it'll not work with somebody. So all I can say is have a great attitude towards learning. As long as you're good with learning, you'll figure out a way.
Yeah, thanks for that answer, Lavi. Another thing similar to that, let's say, since you come from a training background as well, so what are some of the things people should, a continuation of the previous question itself, what are the few things people should avoid? I mean, some of the misconceptions they have in their mind.
um, so the one misconception that I just talked about, which is people think that there is a set list of things that they should know, um, which is, for example, if they enroll themselves into any courses, or if they enroll themselves into any certification, there's list of things. Okay, you should learn supervised learning, you should learn unsupervised learning, and then they get into this trap where they feel like, hey, you know what, I now know what supervised learning is. I know how to write a scikit-learn model. I know a bit of pandas. I should be a data scientist. This is a trap you should avoid, because um, like I said, be very real in the industry. There are thousands and thousands of people now sitting inside the colleges doing exactly the same thing that some folks who are planning to do this beyond 5 years of experience or something like that. So you need to have extra bit of hands-on in those area. So these are one of the biggest misconception people have, is that they tend to follow a very specific course structure, and they think that once I do this, I'll be a data scientist. It usually doesn't work. The second is, I don't know if people have this misconception or not, but at least I have noticed that people have this, which is they think, although it is said a lot that maths is very important, sometimes people think because they're able to write codes in single lines nowadays using scikit-learn and all, they eventually figure out, thinking that, hey, you know what, maths is not that important, because it's just basic things and I know all of this thing. And that's also wrong, because sure, there are a lot of abstractions which has happened in terms of codings nowadays, but that doesn't mean that you should not be good with maths. um, you should really sort of start working on your math in general, going back to your 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th mathematical foundations, calculus foundation, linear algebra foundations, because again, this sort of comes back to the same point that this field is evolving. So currently people are learning machine learning. You have so many new advancements which are happening in deep learning, new models like transformers and all those. You need to know the mathematical backgrounds of those. Similarly, new kinds of algorithms are coming up. So you have reinforcement learning, deep reinforcement learning, evolutionary algorithms. So unless you have the foundation of mathematics, it will be very tough for you to learn things quickly in the whole world of AI. So you should make friends with maths. I know a lot of people are really um, fearful of the maths. I was the one. In fact, I had a huge fear of maths when I started my career, but I eventually made friends with it. And this is what a lot of people should do. So, maths and coding, because these are two things which a lot of people fear a lot. They think that, uh, okay, I'm not good with it, or I won't be able to do it. And then either they don't get into data science because of it, or if they get into data science because of this, they find the easier path where they don't have to do maths or coding either ways. And this is the trap I want people to avoid. Do not think that you don't need to do complex coding in data science. Also, do not think that you'll never be able to um, learn mathematics. So both of these things should be your first priority. Get good with Python coding. And I'm not saying know how to do pandas or scikit-learn, not really. It means that you should be good with data structures. There are thousands of portals on the internet where you can practice your data structures. Data structures ideally has nothing to do with data science, but people who are mature enough and in industry, and I'm sure you will also relate, Aman, that data structure practice is very important, because at the end of the day, when you play with large problem sets, productions, and all those things, it's the data structures which are going to come handy. The knowledge of that will come handy. So I think people should make coding and math their friends. Work on that. Like spend time just to be master of these two things. Rest, everything will eventually come to you. Theories of ML, the theories of DL, these will eventually come, and you'll be more comfortable doing those once you have these two things figured out.
Correct. Very true. Also, I would like to just add on that there are many people, Lavi very rightly said. I have also met uh, somebody from, let us say, mathematics or stats background, and they'll be like, Python is not my thing. I don't want to do Python. So
Right.
that is one thing everybody should avoid. And this side also, people from BTech background, CS background, they'll be like, stats, this much of stats is not for me. I don't understand what is p value, and I'm okay with that. That is not, you cannot call yourself a data scientist if these small things you don't understand.
Right. And I'll tell you the problem why this also happens, Aman. See, it's like, like I said, you have to be a very realist to understand why these problems occur in the first hand, which because there are thousands of courses on the internet where they teach you machine learning without the maths. They teach you machine learning without the code. They stress a lot on, addressing your insecurities at the first level. And people then rush to these things. People then come to them thinking, oh, you know what, this guy is teaching me whole of machine learning without maths. Wonderful, that's what I want. But what they forget is that fundamentally these two things are very important in the overall field. If you want to be a great data scientist, if you're thinking yourself that I just don't want to be a data scientist, but I want to be a great data scientist, then these are your, let me just put it like that, this is your engineering. You need to do this no matter how hard it is. You need to spend time with this. That's another problem which I have noticed in people, is that they see data science and all the things that we study, they think of them as a skill, right? So
Hmm.
when you think of data science stuff as a skill, then you're not ready to put extra effort. If
Hmm.
you think of data science as a field, or AI as a field, again, there's a lot of confusion. People just use these words interchangeably. But if you think about it as a field, then you have to prepare yourself with everything, whether it's maths, whether it's coding, whether it's production, whether it's knowing how the API works, because ultimately you'll do those things as well. Maybe knowing more of software engineering, maybe knowing more of how design thinking works. You have to learn all of those things, because unfortunately we don't have engineering at this point. widely sort of offered overall. So you have to figure out on your own. But that's what I was saying. If you think you want to be a great data scientist, that's what you should do. If you just want to become a data scientist because you think you want 20% increase in your salary or 30% increase in your salary, which is what majority of this is, another thing which people should also know, that it used to be true, that you used to get like 50% or 100% hike in data science areas. It's not true anymore. Like majority of the cases, I'm sure you would know this, someone, I know this so much that I've seen people going or changing jobs, where people who are Java developers are getting sometimes higher, or people who are data engineers are getting much higher hikes compared to data scientists. So
Yes.
come to more reality. This field is tough. This field requires dedication, effort. Put in that, and then become a great one, right? Why become a lousy one? That's all I can say.
And last year, 2 3 years back, if you search data science profiles in LinkedIn, it
Mhm.
was close to 2 3 lakhs. Now, last year, some 6 months back, I saw 8 lakhs. I don't know what is the count now, but many people are claiming they are a data scientist, looking for job like that. And lot of things are happening in the market which should not happen. That is where
Yeah,
recruiters are also looking at you with a doubtful thing, right?
absolutely. And let me be very honest here. I'm also part of
Hmm.
that confusion. I'm because I'm on the other end teaching these people. So let me be honest here and say that I do that as well. But I've been more vocal about this with my students, wherein I've told them very upfront that majority of you will not be a data scientist, because these courses, these all your, so I don't want to name them, but I'm sure a lot of people know already. These courses are us, sort of selling you a dream that you'll be a data scientist just by going through basics. Um, and you will not be, because you're almost spending like lakhs and lakhs of rupees just to learn something which is very fundamental, which will not give you good jobs. And again, I'm not saying like everybody will not get job. Some will, because those people will figure out more things to learn, and luck also plays a lot of things here. But people should really be real. See, these all things were good when I entered the field. Like when people in 2012, 2014, 2016, even if they knew like supervised learning, I still remember when I got my first job,
Hmm.
or I've given like 3 interviews there. The interviews used to be like, do you know supervised learning? Do you know machine learning? Yes, yes. All right, hired. That's the kind of interviews I've given. Like they had no idea what these things were. They were clueless completely. But now the things have drastically changed. Everybody knows what linear logistic regression is, what is p-value. They have like set of 100 questions which are math, which are coding focus. So everybody knows everything. When everybody knows everything, it becomes hard for everybody else to get into these fields, because the saturation has come into the whole field, and people should know this. Because it's one thing to be excited about this field because there are a lot of crazy things, but it's also important to know the reality. A lot of freshers, a lot of people who will be listening to this, and a lot of your viewers and subscribers, they might be having a very unrealistic expectation of, even if they get into data science, they'll be thinking, oh, we'll work on cool models and we'll do cool things and blah blah blah. It's not like that, man. It's like you will do so much grunt work at the start of your career. You'll be doing so much stupid work. And when I say stupid, I can say this because I know what these work look like. I'm sure you will be relating to that. So it's
For
not
months together, I have written regular expression. Months together.
right. So it's like these things nobody talks about. Like everybody sort of starts selling data scientists roles as, it's like you will become Iron Man on day one and you'll do crazy coding stuff and all that. No, it's not like that. You have to be very real in those things. It's just like any other job. It's hard. That's why it pays if you do good thing. The only thing people should be excited about is two things, and I sort of say this in a very clear terms, which is the potential this field has is huge. So what people are, the whole fuss is about that potential. It's not about the field. When the potential is high, which means that you have so much room to expand yourself, which is what people are not doing. What they are thinking is, oh, if I do this course and if I learn these seven things, or if I get these five six certification, I'm done. Like, I'll be the
Yes,
best of data scientists. These people will not exploit the potential AI has in the future. On the other hand, people who know that, all right, I need to know all of this. Sure, I need to do courses because I need to have those basic foundational skills. I will do that. But I will not stop my learning there. I will keep on learning more. I'll keep on learning new things which are happening in AI. There are thousands of topics, and we can discuss this. I mean, you can sort of
correct.
put this as a question, like what are the new things which one should focus on, and I can talk about a lot of new things which are happening. But the point is, people should focus on that as well, because that is where your room of expansion can happen, right? This is where you will go from earning 3 lakhs to 30 lakhs, because that's where the potential is. Your potential is not if you just learn basics of machine learning, do a Coursera course, or do a 2 lakh degree course, then you'll just move from 3 lakh to maybe 5 lakh, or just like 20%, which is standard, which is like if you were to do this in data engineering, or if you were to just do UX, or any new field, if you just pick any new field, you'll get the same 20-30% increment everywhere. So don't take data scientists from that uh, perspective. If you take it from a potential perspective, that you have a lot of room if you don't stop your learning, and if you keep on building your foundation, I think then you can go from 30 to 30 lakhs, where I've seen a lot of people making that transition.
Correct. So, very, very detailed answer, Lavi. I want to add one incident here with my subscribers, and I just want to share with you as well. Talking of these institutes and these courses, right?
Yeah,
So,
please.
last year, one of the institute in Bangalore reached me, and they wanted me to do a mock interview for their students after the course is over, just to prepare them for the market. And believe it or
I
not,
do have a feeling that I already know of which institute you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
and then 70 to 80% of the people I rejected on first question, and the question was, can you tell me what is the 30% of 24? That's all.
Sad.
That's all. And then if somebody answers this question, then rest 20% goes out in difference between percentage and percentile. What are you
Yeah.
teaching, man? Percentage and percentile people are not knowing, and you are getting like 1.5 lakhs is the course for that institute. I got to know later.
Yeah, this is
So
really sad. See, this again comes down to the same fact, right? People are not, they are not fluent in mathematics, which is so wrong. And what people think is, oh, I have to learn calculus. I was never good at it. I can't. I have nightmares about it. Sure, this is what the hard work looks like, right? These are tough things. Doesn't mean that you'll not be able to do it if you don't put effort. And like you rightly said, people are not fluent even with the basic stuff like percentages. It's so important to know those things. It's so important to understand mean median mode. Like, I would also extend the thought of percentile and percentages, is that sometimes people are not even sure of mean median mode. That's also something which I've noticed a lot. Like, they understand the definition, but they don't understand how to interpret that when you see your data. Like, they have no concept of that. And like I said, I usually blame this on the way we have all been educated in our engineering or schools. And this is why I said, Aman, initially, that data science is a very different ball game altogether. If you want, again, if you want to be a lousy one, if you're just focusing on 20-30% gains in your life, if you're playing a short game, sure, go ahead, don't even listen to whatever I'm saying, stop there. um, but if you're somebody who is like, no, I think I'm capable enough to play a long game, and I see myself becoming a chief data scientist kind of a role at some point in my life, or to be a great contributor to the field itself, then I think the long term game is very different. The long term game doesn't end with courses certification. It sort of has a journey where you re-go through everything that you have studied in your life, whether that is maths, whether that's physics. And sure, soon physics will come in because you'll have quantum computers coming into machine learning, so you'll anyway have to study those things as well. But you see, these are things which, you have to change your perspective about learning. You have to change your idea about learning, and that's where I tell people that AI has come at a very right point in a lot of people's life, because it's going to stay. It's not a tool centric technology. Like, if for example, if you want to be a data engineer, you have to be tool centric. um, if you want to be a DevOps guy, you have to be tool centric. You need to learn Jenkins, blah blah blah. But AI, on the other hand, is altogether, like, saying, in a very simple terms, I would say AI is very similar to saying you're doing computer science. And that's the promise of AI in general. It's going to stay here for long. You can play a very long game. For people who invest, this is value investing. If you really think that you want to be a great contributor in the future, both in terms of money and recognition, I think people should play a long game. That's where they'll see a huge gain.
Very true. So we are approaching 4:30. One last question.
Yeah.
Uh, People are all the people who are learning from various courses, or let's say YouTube channels or various blogs, etc. So what they do is they try to learn these things, do a couple of projects or Kaggle, some hackathons, put that in their resume, and then go for an interview. So let's say a fresher comes to you for an interview, then what would be your expectation, and which are the areas you will focus more, and which are the areas you will be okay if people are mediocre kind of from the interview point of view? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that, again, people should take it with a pinch of salt. Um, this is my way of all the interviews that I have taken of freshers or like 1 or 2 years experience, and whenever they have joined my teams. I have always, like, in general, I've always focused on problem solving skill sets. I have never focused on the fact that whether they know how to write a code, like specific code, or I don't focus whether they know the exact theory of mathematics for a given model or not. What I always focus on is how do their mind works. For example, let's say if you and I are sitting for an interview, and let's say I'm interviewing you. I'm not going to ask you, tell me how random forest works, or what is bagging, how does bagging address variance in the model. I'm not going to ask you all of those things. Why? For two reasons. One, I'm sure you must have been prepared, so you'll give the best answer any which way. That doesn't give me anything about you, right? It just tells me that you're a good person who has prepared for it, which is good. The second is, so then in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how you think about a problem. So I'm going to give you live scenarios. I'm going to say, hey, Aman, imagine that I'm working on a problem, and there's model is like 3 GB in size. We have built a model. Now I want to sort of put this in production. The production people or the business people have constraints in the machines that they can provide us to host that model, which is, let's say, just a 8 GB machine that they will be providing us. But they want this model to be able to serve almost roughly, let's say, 10 million requests per second. Now, this is a scenario I want you to think about, because this is a scenario where for sure you will not have complete exposure of, right? And that is when I want to see how do you approach this. I want to see how you would and what I do usually during the interviews is, I let them use Google, and I let them share the screen, and I basically say that, hey, you have Google in front of you. I'm asking you a case study based question. You figure out any damn thing. You want to read it out from somewhere, you want to read it out from a report or blog. I have no issues, because see, at the end of the day, we all do that any which way, right? So whether it's code that I'm asking, whether it's anything, I just give them whole flexibility that please do that. Just do it in front of me, because I want to see what's your approach. I want to see how do you Google things out. Like, to be very honest, I judge people on how do they Google, because that's the biggest part of trying to solve problems when you get stuck with it. Like, I ask them to write a particular code, and I ask them that I know that you don't know how to do that, but I want you to figure this out from Google. I want you to show me how you use Google and Stack Overflow for specific things, and that tells you a lot about their patience level, because a lot of people don't have patience. They think that you're gonna ask them standard things, so they get really pissed off if you don't do that, which again gives you a hint of whether they'll be a good addition to your team or not. It shows you a lot about how do they think about, are they open enough to think about problems, or they are they're very stringent in their approaches when it comes to solving a problem. Are they those people who are going out of the box all of a sudden, where they're going beyond their skill sets and they are like, hey, maybe we can try this, maybe. And the point is, there's no right answer to these questions, at least not from from the person who is answering them, because they don't know half of those things. So that's what I do. Like I said, I don't care if they don't know a lot of theories, because those are something which they can always learn on the job. Everybody does, even I do. Like, if you ask me upfront, tell me, Lavi, how transform models work, I might not be able to answer you that. But if you give me like, hey, let's do a presentation together, then I'll figure it out along with you. And that's what I want to see in people. How good are they at figuring out things? That's all. If you know this about a person, then the rest everything sort of aligns pretty well.
Mhm. Very, very interesting kind of interview.
Yeah.
People will be Googling. So many people ask me, is there a coding round? Is there a mandatory coding round in all the interviews? So answer to that is yes, guys. Coding round may be there, and sometimes you may be allowed to Google as well.
Yeah, I like I said, I do the coding round, and I do very fun coding rounds, not the ones where I give you do this standard thing. I will ask you do interesting things like find out who is the most hottest Bollywood star trending on Twitter right now. Tell me the approach, the tools, the things that you will use. A lot of people say, "Hey, I don't know how to do this in Twitter," and I'm saying, "Yeah, that's why I'm saying." Open Google, figure it out. Tell me the approaches that you see in blogs. Because see, again, if you think about it, Aman, for a moment, this is exactly how we work in day-to-day life, right? Our business comes to us and they say, hey, we want to do this, and then we are like, okay, we know what we know 10% of how, but let's then you anyway go to blogs, Medium, Google, and you figure out, and then you go back to them and say, all right, this is the solution. So I want to exactly see the same thing, how people are doing that, because if I see that they are very good at figuring out things, then they are good addition to team. It complements the whole premise of my team, at least.
Yes, true. That's a very good, way of knowing people's thought process, how people approach a problem.
Right. So,
That is,
like you rightly pointed out, the thought process is the most important in data science, because skill sets, theories, everything else is something they can always learn on the job. Um, but the mindset and the thought process is something which is hard to come by. You could be a great you could be a great person with all the theories, but you don't know how to figure out things which are new, then you will struggle in data science for sure.
and most of the times it is 80-90% of the time solutions will not be same. It will be different from each other. That is what we call the tailored solution, right? So it will
Exactly.
just be different. So if I'm using a keras tokenizer, I cannot blindly use a keras tokenizer and whatever words keras is giving me, I create a vector and fit my model on that. It does not work that way. based on the
None of the
business.
things work the way they should in deep learning, right? So this is why people should have curiosity. They should have a sense of knowing, or a sense of thought that no, I should know why these things are the way they are. um, because then they'll explore things. Because I'm telling you, the production story is very different. When you put things into production, it gives you a very new sense of machine learning or deep learning, whichever
Correct.
one you focus on. Because then you can't go wrong in things, right? I mean, it's very different. And always tell people that people forget the science and the data science, and they treat it like a engineering. Engineering is where you know from start to end what you're supposed to do, so everything is sort of engineered in that sense. Science is different. Science is about experiments. Science is about possible hypothesis. Science is about failures. You never know whether the problem that you're solving will be solved or not. But people don't have those thoughts. So many funny interviews I had where where I asked people, and I gave them some problem statement, and I asked them, "Do you think this will be solved?" You know what's their first responses, because of their insecurities, because they think they're giving interviews and they have to sound cool. Yeah, yeah, we can solve this. We can get 90% accuracy by random forest and gradient boosting and all that. And I'm like, dude, you have not even seen the data. How can you say that? Like, you have no idea about the data, but you have this much confidence in saying that, yeah, we can solve this, we can do complicated models, and we can also try. You see, this is what the problem is. People are thinking of data science as an engineering problem. It's not an engineering problem, it's a scientific problem. You have to experiment. You have to know what your data looks like people forget. People are so model centric in their approach when it comes to solving a problem, that they almost forget that huge amount of work has to be done in the previous parts of your whole cycle. Like, you need to know what your data is. If your data is garbage, what will you do in models?
Very true.
Right. So that's the thing. That's another thing that I would again tell to everyone, which is, please understand the scientific process. Understand this is why maths is important. Understand this is why Aman was saying that, um, you know understanding of percentages are important, or the basic mathematical interpretations are important, because you will see graphs, you will see percentage happening here and there. If you do one small mistake in those interpretation, everything connected to that downstream will just go for a toss. And it has a huge cost, and I think one of the things people are not taught is that there's a huge cost associated with every model that goes to production.
That you are talking from your experience, Lavi, I can correlate.
Yeah,
Is a very very important point. Huge cost associated with every decision, every project we try to execute, and then in the end, if you are not able to give something tangible, you will not feel good, and things might go in a very different direction.
you'll be fired. The best, the best I always tell people is that do not ever think that you'll not be fired, because, and this is where people should be very responsible, because see, we have complicated models which will give you illusion of accuracy. And again, for those who have done this a lot, on Kaggle or in general, they would know this, that there are so many times when models will give you illusions of accuracy. But how do you know whether those are going to hold true in the future sense? Because you see, again, the bigger problem here is, which people forget, the base reality is you base your assumptions on historical data. On that, you're quoting 90%. How would you be so sure that this 90% will be maintained in the future, or in the production, or after the production? How sure or how confident are you about that? Because if you're not, then somebody will fire you, because if they're making crucial decisions on those,
Very true.
you will either be fired or your team will go for a toss. And I've seen a lot of people go through that.
Everywhere cost is involved, it will be very big decisions they will take very quickly, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm saying, see, now does it make sense, someone, when I said that, think of this as a field. field wherein a lot of components are there, and you have to study each and every component on its own entirety. Productions, governance of the data, interpretabilities of the models. Like we have so many new things which are coming up. You should learn all of those things in those in the entirety of those particular component. If you don't, and if you're learning it the way institutes and coachings are teaching you, then you will be blinded by those things. You'll not, like I said, you'll play a short term game where you'll might get 20-30%, but you'll not be able to survive long enough to be a great data scientist. You'll just be like a software engineer the way we have right now. Everybody is a software engineer. And I'm sure down the line, 2-3 years, people will say this for data science. Everybody is a data scientist now because they are, like, everybody can talk. If you call 1,000 people on your podcast, and they'll if you ask them these different terminologies of data science, everybody can talk.
Yes, I'll take some of the very crucial points what Lavi spoke about. One is, guys, all of you should understand that it's not about getting accuracy. Okay, so it as an interviewer, if you think right, then if I'm interviewing you and I talk of a huge case and you immediately start talking about the accuracy, that does not give a very good impression. Okay, you should talk about the approach, the data preparation. What do you think will make sense? Some of the hypotheses. And when I build a model, right, I do not feel very good running model.predict or print me the confusion matrix. First of all, you need to see what you are trying to do, what data you are preparing, right? It is very similar to, you are riding a bike on a hill, you are in gear number 5 and you are trying to go up. So it is not made for that. You cannot take a wrong gear and go on a slope up. Similarly, you cannot take a wrong data and try to do something great with that. All the institutes, right, they will start from CSV file or Excel file, as Lavi told, right? And I'm also telling you, all of you should focus on how that CSV is created first. Think through that. Correct me, Ravi, if I'm wrong. Correct me, Ravi.
Absolutely. I agree. Like I said, every component of the whole cycle should be studied in its own entirety. Like you rightly said, the source data should be studied very thoroughly. You should know each and every premise of that data. You should have a business discussion. See, this is another very overlooked area of data science is communication skills, your skills to interpret and communicate. Um, because it is you who will be translating complexities of your pipelines to the business, and you need to have that skill set, which I can be very sure that 95% of people don't have. They're not good with speaking. They're not good with translating complex things into simple things. They're not good at putting mathematical putting mathematical things into more simpler English. Like for example, the percentages you said, right? So there is a mathematical way of telling this to somebody, and then there's a non-mathematical way. Are you fluent in that? These are things which you have to work on. These are things because day in, day out, you are more excited about accuracies, p-values, confusion matrix. Nobody cares about it. The business doesn't care about that. What they care about is whether their problem is solved or not, and you don't have a right answer to that. So you have to come up with translations and fluency where you can explain this to them that, hey, you know what, we were able to do this, but this is what you should be careful with. This is how we're going to do this. You should also focus on how are you going to handle the inefficiencies, or how are you going to handle the errors in your data. Like, no model is going to give you 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
either you're lucky or you're completely disillusioned that you will get 100%. But let's say if you get 90%, which means how are you going to handle 10%? What's the process for 10%? You can't put it on your business and say, hey, I don't care, you figure it out. That's your job. That's your job to tell the business that how would you know when the models are going to go for a toss, and how will you handle those transactions, or how would you handle those records. um, and this is another thing which I always tell people is that please have very good communication skills. Start speaking up, develop the comm skills if you don't have. Because ultimately, if you, again, like I said, if you want to play a long game, you will be, another thing which I'm sure a lot of people who are experienced, and I'm sure even you would have that exposure, is data science teams are usually exposed to higher managements, right? Um, they're either talking to CXOs levels, or they're talking to senior managements, or they're talking to, in some cases, like I very recently I spoke to the chief data officer of Gartner. He's a big guy, like literally he's a big guy. Now in front of those people, you can't just, you can't stutter, you can't look confused, you can't talk bullshit, you can't say weird things like, oh, my model is 90, we use these crazy jazzy things. They don't care about any of those things. What they care about is, tell them from a problem solving perspective. They had a problem, you had a solution. What were you able to achieve? What were you able to not achieve? How are you going to address that? So you need to work on those skill sets, which again, unfortunately, a lot of people who are coming from engineering don't have, because all they have is how to speak in viva, or how to basically manipulate people. Like, it's a very funny saying that we do, like fatte marna, which is so true, because a lot of people do that, and that doesn't work very well. You can't fatte maro in the data science, specifically when it comes to higher management, because they are way smarter than you. Maybe not in data science, but if you try to fool them with these stupid things, you will get caught, and you will have the consequences later on. So this is another viewpoint that all of you should understand, which is, have, and it's not something that you'll just get in like 6 months or 1 year. It's
Correct.
something which, expose yourself out, speak to people, speak in conferences, like Aman is doing a great job hosting something. Do things like this. I mean, I'm so glad you're doing it. I wish everybody else can do something like this, because this is how you improve your comm skills. This is how you improve your translation of fluency of mathematics and complex stuff.
Yeah, very true. One point I would want to add, guys. You have to change your what do you say, level of information that you are doing, or the way you are passing the information, right? So like the way Lavi said, if you are talking to a CXO level person who doesn't understand data science, then the words, the jargons you will use will be different. Than in some cases you will find people who are extremely good in data science concepts. Okay, so those people might directly ask you, hey, why did you use this kernel in SVM? Why not the other kernel? So then you have to convince that person also why this kernel is making sense here. But these things you cannot talk to somebody who doesn't understand data science. So you and me as a data scientist has to be a master of both these aspects. And that is where the com skills becomes very important.
I agree. I agree. Great point. So your fluency should be in both the directions. So you should be fluent enough to go as deep as somebody wants you to in terms of your overall approach, and also the other way around, which is you should be as superficial, so that business gets what they are looking for.
True. That was a very good point, Lavi. So any closing remarks, Lavi, for all the students, all the people who will be watching this?
Yeah. So one thing that I want to sort of mention is, the point that I was saying before, which is there are a lot of new things which are coming up in machine learning. Get out of the space of the standard things which you're anyway supposed to know. So I'm not saying stop those and learn this. Get over those things, learn those, master those, do all of those as a first step. But there are a lot of new areas which are coming up. I'll quickly sort of mention those names. One can just Google out and explore those things. So for example, things like model interpretation, you have sharp techniques, you have many new techniques which are coming up. Model interpretations are important because, again, when you do production, A very simple example of that is if you're using very complex models like XGBoost or let's say neural networks to predict fraud in a given transaction, your business would want to know the rules out of that model. They would want to know, why did you say a particular person is a fraud versus a non-fraud? Because they they want to know the rules so that they can do proactive action. And this is why model interpretations are very important. You should know these things, very important. I've seen people started studying these, but not to the level they should. Second is MLOps, which is model operations. This is again a new word which is coming up. Andrew NG sort of spoke about it yesterday. So for those of you who are interested, they should just search for MLOps, Andrew NG. He spoke in a very interesting manner, very basic. He told about what MLOps is. MLOps is again future of machine learning, where we shift, like I said, we shift from these from the model centric approach to production centric approach. As the industry advances and matures in itself, you will see that companies will then move to production. When you move to production, there are thousands of things that you need to work on. There's model observability, there's model safety, model encryptions. There are a lot of new concepts which are coming inside the world of MLOps. There are API, there are things where you can sort of encrypt your models because of the privacy issues. Data governance is another thing which people should know and learn about, because we already have GDPRs in Europe, but I'm sure that we'll have those in US and India as well very soon, if not like in 6 months, but I'm sure in next 5 years you'll see these kinds of things, which means that you would have to then work in the gambit of these privacy of the data. So you'll not get data the way we get data right now, which means you will have your models which has to be encrypted. Federated learning is another important concept which is coming up. It's already there in TensorFlow. For those of you who work on TensorFlow, you should explore federated learning as well. It's decentralized learning, which means currently what happens is you take all the data point to a center location and then you run your models. The opposite of this is federated learning, where you decentralize it. So rather than training on whole data, you train on the endpoints. A great example of that is, your mobiles. Your mobiles have your own data. Because of the privacy, what will happen eventually is that the data will not go into the cloud, which means that the company should then do something like they will train the local model first on your mobiles and then send the parameters to the cloud rather than sending the data to the cloud, and which is what the whole idea of federated learning is. These are again new things which are coming up, and people should people should really focus on these aspects. So this is again for those of you who would like to play a long game in AI, who see AI as um, AI as you know completely changing the next 2 decades of world. If you see yourself being very transformational in those decades, please explore these areas and many more. I'll not go in a lot of these. Three are enough for you to sort of start exploring. And the last one I would say is, please develop a reading habit if you don't already have. Spend at least half an hour every day, whatever your source is. I prefer Medium because you have like good collection of new stuff on AI happening there. But please have a good habit of reading, read different blogs, read new things, expand your horizons, like see all different solutions which people are suggesting, or new things which people are suggesting, or new alternatives to models, or alternative to processes. So spend at least half an hour every day without fail. Read, and you can read it on your mobile. You don't have to do this on your laptop, but that habit is really important. So yeah, that's what I will say.
Yes, in mobile medium app is there. I also use that. People can use, it's very convenient also.
Yeah, that's all I'll say. And I would say that um, keep it chill. It's a tough field, but if you're having fun going through the process and the journey, I think you will really love the whole field. I mean, I used to hate it initially, but then when I started noticing that there are so many interesting things, there are so many interesting people across the world doing interesting stuff with that. It doesn't matter whether you get to do this or not, which is a lot of people have this issue. It's fine. You will not be working the way maybe some Google engineers are working. Sure, it's fine. But the good thing is at least you can see those things right now because of the blogs and Kaggle and all those things. At least you can see what these people are doing, and that itself is very interesting. I think this is a good thing which people should realize, that take take a very chill approach, because if you overburden yourself, if you over pressurize yourself, you will actually lose out on AI because there's a lot of things to do. It's like cracking IIT, and if you learn from anybody who has cracked IIT, you will always see one thing very consistent, which is most of the top rankers, they have taken a very chill approach towards it. They have never thought of it as a big thing. People who think of it as a big thing, they never get top ranks. So think of it in this way. Just take a chill pill, explore things, learn things, do things, have a good positive attitude, and play a long game. That's all I can say, Aman.
Thanks for the detailed answer again, Lavi. So I would like to thank you from my side and all the subscribers, people who will be listening to this. So a big thank you to you for your time, Lavi.
Thanks, Aman. I think I had fun.
So what I'll do, guys, I'll drop Lavi's LinkedIn in the description of the video in case if you want to get connected. Is that okay, Lavi? I can do that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'll do that, guys. So please get connected if you want to, and then we will continue on the discuss. Thanks one more time, Lavi. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Aman. Had pleasure. I wish you all the good luck with your channel and your career, and I hope to see you cross maybe 1 lakh soon. So you are at 10K right now, right? Perfect. I hope that you cross 1 lakh soon. You're
Lavi.
doing great. I think you have a good approach. Um, Invite more people. In fact, I think long back in 2018, I think, I'm not sure. I actually thought of doing this, what you're doing. That's why I have a great respect because you finally did that. Which is, I think the good thing is not just the people who are 40 under 40, but you should invite more people who are doing data scientist at front. Invite those people, because the great content beyond the content of the normal stuff that you do, that is where the big content is, in a sense that because you'll get to see, it's not that what I say is the only thing. There are thousands of viewpoints, approaches. There are crazy people who are doing crazy things, and I think that's really good for everybody in the industry, not just for you, not just for your subscribers, but even for people like us who are working and we don't get a platform to speak about our stuff. Because see, not everybody is going to write a blog, right? Not everybody is also going to start their own podcast, but what they all can do is go and talk to somebody who is interested in listening. And I think there are a lot of people in good companies across India, and I think you should definitely keep doing this. Bring more people from industry, talk to them, see what they're doing. In fact, there was one thing I can also suggest you, which I wanted to, which is um, bring people and discuss problem statements with them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is important because the thing that I mentioned, right? You want people to give a sense of problem solving approaches. Like, for example, let's say you and I connect and you have a Kaggle problem. And then you sit and discuss with that person that, all right, what do you think? How do we solve this problem? And then you both sit together and maybe other people can join in if that's live, and they all can chip in and talk about. So it should not be a one-way communication, because that's another very important point of data science. It's a very collaborative effort, which means if you have like 10, 20 people sitting together and thinking about a problem, somebody will say, let's do this, somebody will say, let's do that. That I think is a really good idea if you do it. I have not seen this anywhere else on YouTube. Maybe somebody is doing it. I'm not sure, but try doing that. That would be really amazing.
Great suggestion, Lavi. Many of my subscribers told me, why don't I create a group of, let's say, 10, 15 people? And, similar to what you have suggested, take a problem and then discuss and try to solve, kind of assignment to the people.
Yeah, I mean, so solving would not be possible. Like end to end, obviously we can't solve things in 1 hour. If that would be that easy, I'm sure everybody would be
Yeah, some brainstorming and
yeah.
discussion.
But the point is approach. The point is, how is the mind of two data scientists who is sitting together and discussing? It will not only expand your horizon personally, it will also expand the person who is, sort of sharing there, and people who are attending with you, because everybody will then feel like a part of problem solving. So the goal is not to write code or to just get the accuracy, but the goal is to sort of talk about, all right, I'm going to do these basic things in EDA, or I'm going to do these pre-processing because I think this is going to be important. My modeling approach will be, I'm going to start with maybe PyCaret and just let it run so that I can get top 5 good models, and then I can go through a grid search with those top 5 models. So you see that there could be a lot of approaches which will come out of this, which is what people are hungry for. They are not hungry for code, because you can't put coding in 1 hour context. That could be a different section altogether, where you can do like marathons, like 6 hour marathon, like that, where you actually sit and solve coding wise as well. But yeah, this could be something you can start off as a weekly or a monthly stuff. I
That's a
would love
great,
to be
great
part of
suggestion.
that.
Yes, sure, Lavi. Let us do that sometime. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. Works.
Thanks again, Lavi, for your time.
Had pleasure, Aman.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day.
Take care. Bye. You too.